picture to win 10 Academy Awards. The most honored, the most talked about motion picture in all film history.
At the care of Miami Miracle Gateway and 163rd Street Theater. FYI presents the biggest, most exciting news pictures of the year. Next on Channel 4, the nation's most honored station for news. WTVJ Channel 4. FYI, for your information. Another in a series of special reports produced by WTVJ News. Tonight's program, News Picture of the Year, is brought to you by Chase Federal Savings and Loan Association, who invite you to save where thousands save and say as thousands say. For my money, it's Chase Federal.
This Saturday in Atlantic City, WTVJ News will receive one of the nation's highest honors in the field of journalism. The Headliners Club, a national organization of professional newsmen, will present its annual Silver Medallion Award to Channel 4 for the country's most outstanding television coverage of local news in 1960. We wish to thank you, our viewers, for making this proud moment possible and for making our news broadcasts the highest-rated programs in this market. More people watch WTVJ's evening news show than watch any other program, local or national, on this or any other station in South Florida. Tonight, we'd like to take you behind the scenes for the inside story of the people who make up our award-winning news team. WTVJ is located in downtown Miami, an ideal spot from which to measure the pulse of the city. In the newsroom, activity as usual. Today, assignment editor Tony Kucharak holds a brief conference with film librarian Phyllis Williams. He marks the assignment sheet to indicate that a piece of library film is available to help background a story in the day's news. Phyllis finds it and removes it from the file. Newscaster Del Frank is busy preparing copy for his noon news program. Suddenly, an emergency signal blares from the police radio. A car has plunged into Tamiami Canal at Chrome Avenue. Possible fatalities. Kucharak dispatches Al Dempsey and Ed Godfrey to the location. He calls the Watson Island heliport with notification that Dempsey is on his way over. Godfrey will drive out, and the two of them will team up at the scene. Chrome Avenue is a long way from the newsroom. The helicopter will save valuable time and put a WTVJ News camera on the story while the action is still happening. The whirlybird is waiting and Dempsey is on his way. At the station, Channel 4's News in Espanol program begins to take shape. This is Manolo Reyes, and he's talking with co-editor Mike Alonso. WTVJ's nightly editorial gets an early start also. Editorial researcher Ira Eisenberg gathers information from as many sources as possible. Then he calls for a conference to make sure that what he has is what we want. All sides of an issue must be considered before a sensible conclusion can be reached. If a point is not clear, we recheck it. WTVJ, since inaugurating the daily editorial in September 1957, has commented on subjects of public interest 773 times as of today. Another newsman films another story. Ron Oppen is behind the camera. Former heavyweight champ Ingamar Johannsson in front of it. Ingo is fighting the U.S. government in a bout over back taxes. In the meantime, newsman Dempsey is hovering over Chrome Avenue, recording the action below. Rescuers attempt to revive two small children, but their efforts fail. Dempsey uses a car battery to supply power for his sound camera, then films an interview between Godfrey and a heroic passerby. Another story breaks, this time at Miami Beach. Manolo Reyes questions a Cuban who fled the Castro regime in a homemade raft. Every office has its Girl Friday. Ours is Ruth Sperling. A tip comes in, and she notifies Kucharak. He contacts the news car as it heads back from the canal.
Ruth, did you say Medley?
That's right, near the racetrack.
Thank you. 7-3, this is 706. What's your location, please? Can you hop over to Medley? There's a big fire near the racetrack.
Right. Location by this small metal bypass. 3.21%.
421 at 158, KIJ 706.
Channel 4 arrives at the fire at the same time the engines are pulling up. Newsman Godfrey gets close to the action. The wild brush fire threatens to engulf an oil refinery, and WTVJ cameras make the home viewer an eyewitness to the event. Back in the newsroom, night editor Zeke Siegel begins collecting wire copy for the 6:30 program. This will supplement information already gathered at the scene by our combination cameramen reporters. Siegel has the latest story on Johansson's court hearing and turns it over to Oppen. Now the mechanical end of the operation is in full swing. Lab technician Ed Reed begins processing the hundreds of feet of film that go into the preparation of a newscast. Once processed, the footage is carefully screened by film editor Joe Martinez. He chooses only those scenes which best depict the story. 35 minutes to airtime, and the entire staff of cameramen and reporters has now become writers. Words must be fitted to pictures. No easy task with a deadline fast approaching. Producer of the 6:30 news is Fred Mooke. He decides which stories to use and where they'll go. Each script must be carefully numbered. Mooke checks with Dempsey to find out how long his canal story runs. The film is cut, and Martinez ties the show together with splices. It's going to be a close one. Martinez races down to the projection room without too much time to spare. Then the newscast is on the air, and all concerned with putting it together stand by to make sure it comes off smoothly. South Florida receives a complete picture of the day's news in a way that no other medium can duplicate. As soon as one program is over, preparation for the next one begins. Chet Colero leads off the night coverage by heading up to Fort Lauderdale, where vacationing college students are staging a riot. The students want the use of an unlighted beach area. The city police say no. This is the result, and WTVJ news cameras are there. 11 o'clock newscaster Joe Templeton begins assembling some visual material for his program. Maps and still pictures help to pinpoint the day's happening. Templeton adds his own touches to make the situation even clearer. Martinez and Siegel check to see that film and script are both in the same order. And then Templeton is on the air, ending another day of news programming at WTVJ.
And now, here is Noah Tyler for Chase Federal.
For months now, Floridians have been seeing Chase Federal advertisements in their local papers. Months ago, Chase made the decision to help local homeowners and builders by reducing the cost of home financing. Interest rates as low as 5.5% for select properties. Low closing costs of 2.5%. FHA mortgages for individuals and builders with low discounts. Now, as further aid, Chase Federal's new construction loan schedule shows closing costs as low as 2%. Yes, once again, Chase sets the pace for mortgages. Once again, Chase Federal has taken the lead in providing for individuals, builders, real estate people, everyone, low mortgage rates and outstanding service. These combine to make Chase Federal the leader, setting the pace in Florida.
Planning to buy, build, or refinance your present home? Want a new Florida home for life in the sun? Chase Federal reminds you to say as thousands of satisfied homeowners say, for lower costs, for lower discounts, for my money, it's Chase Federal Savings and Loan Association.
You've seen the WTVJ News Department in action. Now, more examples of our news coverage. We'd like you to see a portion of the award reel that won us the Headliners Club medallion.
The top story in Florida in 1960, Hurricane Donna. A WTVJ newsman was aboard a Navy Hurricane Hunter plane when the decision was made by the Weather Bureau to place Florida on hurricane alert. This same crew had already made several flights into Donna and reported it was the first hurricane the Navy flyers couldn't penetrate at low level at least once. A barrier of severe rain, wind, and turbulence extended outward over 60 miles from the eye. The plane's skipper said it might as well have been a solid wall. Back in Miami, Weather Bureau personnel got regular reports from the plane and got busy plotting Donna's course. Here's what the bureau chief had to say about her.
This is a very dangerous hurricane, packing winds of about 150 miles an hour. In fact, gusts in this hurricane may be somewhat higher than that.
Hurricane flags were raised in Miami for the first time in 10 years. Now the wheels began to turn. Small boat owners quickly moved them from exposed berths to sheltered spots up the Miami River. In past hurricanes, many owners found their boats high and dry in downtown Miami after the storm. In many places in the Miami River, the boats were packed in like sardines. They survived the big blow with a minimum of damage. Store owners started boarding up their shops. Homeowners took the same precautions. This is one reason why the Weather Bureau hesitates about forecasting a hurricane. If the big blow doesn't come, these precautions have cost millions of dollars for nothing. Weather-wise residents also bought groceries. Most of them didn't depend upon refrigeration because in high winds, the first casualties are usually the power lines. Those who didn't trust their wood frame dwellings took shelter in Miami area high schools. As the storm moved closer, Floridians kept their television sets tuned in for word from the Weather Bureau.
I hope that everyone within range of my voice has completed all necessary hurricane precautions. And I hope that all those who should have been evacuated on the Keys and along the coastal areas have already evacuated, because it is now too late to do very much about it.
The wind kept increasing, making it difficult even for birds. U.S. Highway number 1, which runs down through the Florida Keys from Miami, presented no traffic problems.
This is Dick Dale at the north end of the 7-mile bridge that you see in the background here. These winds now have come from 40 miles an hour in gusts to a steady 70 or 75 miles an hour. It's taking about everything I can do to stand here. The water you see on me isn't rain, it's the spray from behind the camera. The way the sea is running right now is almost a certainty that properties will be damaged in this area, and most people are moving to higher ground from whatever area they happen to occupy.
Further down in the Keys, nearly everybody took shelter in strong public buildings. The land is only a few feet above sea level, and the residents know from experience how high and how fast the water rises during a storm. Two WTVJ newsmen found their motel room in Marathon in the Mid-Keys to be of no use as a shelter during the storm. The water rose and covered the road, then the front lawn, and then started flowing through the motel room door. The newsmen were forced to leave when the water rose to chest level. Their exodus was complicated by the fact that one of them couldn't swim. The equipment had to be left behind while they helped one another to find high ground. Total loss, 1 car, 1 sound camera, a silent camera, and miscellaneous clothing. A narrow escape for the newsman. Back in Miami, the causeway leading to the island of Key Biscayne was closed. Police feared motorists would be trapped by high water on the roadway. Civil Defense Headquarters in Miami coordinated all South Florida storm precautions. 80-mile-an-hour winds began buffeting the city, tearing awnings, smashing windows, and raising havoc with electric power lines. On Miami Beach, a luxury yacht broke from its moorings. Several policemen risked their lives tying it up for the high and dry owner. The full fury of that storm smashed the Keys with winds up to 180 miles an hour. The water rose as high as 12 feet above normal, overturning trailers, smashing homes, knocking power poles over, and lifting boats onto the roadway. The Florida Keys had always feared a hurricane since the thin strip of land is bounded on both sides by water. The highest point is only 7 feet above sea level, and when the water rises, it covers the land. 95% of the Keys dwellers had evacuated themselves to Miami or Key West or to strong shelters sprinkled throughout the Keys area. In Miami and Miami Beach, the winds were less severe, but the rain fell by the ton. The damage was confined to windows, a few power lines, and boats. A WTVJ news crew was sent to the hard-hit west coast of Florida. Everglades City, one of the oldest hamlets in South Florida, was flattened. Motorboats operated on Main Street. Families, most of them commercial fishermen, salvaged what little they could of their belongings and piled them onto boats, rafts, or anything that would float. These people never thought the storm would curve around, but it did and hit them from behind. The main road connecting Miami with Tampa was blocked by giant pine trees that yielded to the storm's fury. In Naples, luxury homes facing the Gulf of Mexico were demolished by the water. It smashed through the front, ripped up heavy tile and concrete floors, and then pounded its way out the back of the homes. In the Keys, Red Cross emergency shelters began feeding the refugees, many of whom had no homes left to return to. An air of shocked fatigue could be felt. Listen to this worker's story.
Mrs. Rodriguez is one of the workers who has been going through this hurricane since the beginning. Mrs. Rodriguez, about how long have you been working?
I don't know. What day is it?
Today's Sunday. About how many people have you taken care of here?
I don't really know. Just endless.
What time did you start sorting things out today?
I don't know the time. I've just been going along.
Where are all of the supplies coming from?
I believe they're coming from the Red Cross, from the Navy, from donors, from just everyone.
This is what remained of the Keys after Donna's unwelcome visit. The bright sandy strip of fishing camps, retirement homes, and tourist motels was transformed into a smashed, muddy mess. The water line carrying water between Miami and Key West over a stretch of 170 miles was broken in 6 places. 7 bridges were washed out. There were no telephone communications, no electric power. Thousands of persons were isolated. Many more who had fled to Miami and who owned property in the Keys frantically besieged officials for some word of damages. But the only word was coming from ham radio operators, hurriedly pressed into service. One survivor rode out that storm in a boat. Here is how he described it.
Mr. Irwin, where were you during this storm?
I was on my boat trying to hold on to it. That's all I can say. I was between Snicker Keys up at Lower Matacumby, right off Lower Matacumby at the starting of it. And I wound up over close to Flamingo.
Well, how did you happen to get there?
I rode the boat across there. It tore up, but I rode just hung on to it the best I could till I got over there.
How far would you say the wind carried you?
Oh, I'd say about 20 or 25 miles. But I made the first half of the storm fine. And then when the wind changed, it just pulled trees and everything loose and just carried me right off.
And you were just picked up today, is that right?
That's right. I was just picked up today without no water, no food, or cigarettes or anything. I was getting mighty weak today, I'll tell you that. That's about all I know. It's just like a big nightmare. It's hard to describe everything that went on. You just can't do it.
Some pessimists said this washed things up for the Keys. They said the Keys would never rebuild, that no investor would risk his money again. This was the most disastrous hurricane in Florida's history, doing over $200 million worth of damage. But the rebuilding in the Keys began. The Keys residents moved back, and things have returned to normal. To paraphrase a song, the ordeal has ended, but the memory lingers on. Hundreds of South Florida police went into action last winter to catch a trigger-happy thief. He killed 2 gas station attendants in Miami, wounded a third. The man that lived told police to look for a young red-headed boy. While lawmen fanned out, the gas station owner talked with a WTVJ newsman.
Mr. Waller, what advice do you give your men that work in your station?
I always tell the men that whenever they're confronted with a situation where there's a gun involved, always to give the man the money and let him go without an argument of any kind. The money we can always get. The man's life we can't. I'm sure that that's just exactly what Jack did, because he had it impressed upon him just last weekend.
A few days later, the suspect was captured in West Palm Beach. 17-year-old Dennis Whitney admitted the 2 killings in Miami, one in West Palm, a woman whose car he stole. He confessed to killing 4 other persons in the western United States on his way to Florida. Whitney said he shot all of his victims in the head because that seemed like the logical place. He was convicted of first-degree murder in Palm Beach, sentenced to life. A Miami jury then heard that case and found him guilty and did not recommend mercy.
Dennis, do you feel there are cases where capital punishment is or would be justified?
I do feel there are cases where it would be justified. Myself, I don't feel it was right in my case.
Dennis, the relatives of the victims involved in these shootings, when questioned yesterday, seemed to feel that yesterday's verdict was justified. You mentioned a few minutes ago that you felt in some instances it was. Why do you feel that in your particular case it isn't?
Well, I don't feel I was completely responsible for what I've done. I know I've done what I've done. I've been honest about it all along. But when I left California, I was quite upset. I don't think I was quite myself. So I don't feel it was like any other case.
One of the most amusing stories in South Florida in 1960 concerned Mr. Moke, a 3-year-old chimpanzee. He made several court appearances, slept through most of them. His owner, Robert Tomarchin, sold him to a St. Louis zoo, then changed his mind and stole him back. Extradition proceedings took place. Tomarchin had to go to Missouri and stand trial. It was during one of these hearings that Mr. Moke was taken from Tomarchin by a bailiff. As he walked down the jail corridor, his would-be owner was taken to another cell. And then it happened. The chimp got away, crawled through the bars, He was angry and started looking for Tomarchin. The puzzled jailer said he'd never seen anything like it. Tomarchin was released to calm Mr. Moke, and the two had lunch together.
Now here is Noah Tyler for Chase Federal.
Several months ago, Chase Federal set the pace for the local mortgage field. Chase announced a prime mortgage rate of 5.5% for mortgages on better homes in good locations with substantial owner investment. Now, as a further aid, Chase announces a new reduced schedule, closing costs at the low rate of 2.5% plus abstracting, and as low as 2% on residential construction loans to owner-occupants and to builders with approved purchasers. This represents a further saving to you in buying, building, or refinancing a home. Yes, Chase Federal again takes the lead in assisting our local builders, realtors, residents, you, by providing low-cost home financing, longer terms, and lower monthly payments. Chase sets the pace.
Planning to buy, build, or refinance your present home? Want a new Florida home for life in the sun? Chase Federal reminds you to say, as thousands of satisfied homeowners say, for lower costs, for lower discounts, for my money, it's Chase Federal Savings and Loan Association.
Nobody knows what will happen tomorrow, but we can pledge to you that all of our news staff members will give their best efforts to report those events and happenings for you in the most interesting and best pictorial manner. We have attempted to keep pace. For example, WTVJ was the first television station in the nation to institute a daily continuing editorial. That was nearly 4 years ago. Because of the importance of happenings in nearby Latin America, we have been the only TV station to send reporters on such assignments as the organization of American States meeting in Costa Rica last August and the saga of the Santa Maria off the coast of Brazil in February. Again, we want to express appreciation to you, the viewer, for your support as evidenced in the fact that the largest television audience in South Florida is tuned to WTVJ News according to the February rating survey of the American Research Bureau. We have also been gratified about the national recognition given our news efforts. At the outset of the program, we mentioned the Headliners Club Award. Now, a new honor. Tonight in Chicago, it was announced that WTVJ has been selected as the News Film Station of the Year in the 18th Annual News Pictures of the Year competition. The Station of the Year designation is the top-ranked award in television photojournalism. The annual competition is jointly sponsored by the National Press Photographers Association, the University of Missouri School of Journalism, and Encyclopedia Britannica. Judges viewed more than 21 miles of 16 and 35 millimeter news film. The screening sessions were held at the Missouri Journalism School and in Washington, D.C. The designation as Station of the Year will inspire all of us on the WTVJ News staff to increase our efforts to warrant this honor. We pledge continued, vigorous, factual, and informative reports of the news. We sincerely hope that you will continue to join us as partners in this venture. Our efforts are made on your behalf. To be informed today is to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Thank you and good night.
News Pictures of the Year, another in a series of FYI programs for your information, has been presented by Chase Federal Savings with 5 convenient offices to serve you. Why don't you join the thousands who say, for my money, it's Chase Federal. Tonight's program was filmed and written by Fred Mooke. Narrated by Ralph Rennick. Award reel produced by Ron Oppen, Ruth Sperling, Joe Martinez, and Phyllis Williams. Film editor Joe Martinez. directed by Marty Saxon.
WTVJ Channel 4 Miami cited as the News Film Station of the Year, an annual award co-sponsored by the Encyclopedia Britannica.
New from Simon Eyes, Car Wash Sensation, new Vista Wash and Wax. Easiest way to wash your car and get a real wax